Let's do some draft talk here on the San Francisco 49ers Report. My name is Chase Sr., and as always, no matter where you are, how you're tuned in, thank you so much for making today's show a part of your day. What we're getting into here today, a full 7-round Niners mock draft. ESPN NFL draft analyst Matt Miller, NFL draft scout on X, did a full 7-round mock draft for all 32 teams across the National Football League. And I actually really like the players that he chose to go to the San Francisco 49ers, and we're going to go through all of those players coming up here throughout the program. And let's just begin with this. The biggest remaining needs for the Niners after the peak of free agency, looking ahead to the NFL draft, still need to improve this offensive line. Niners didn't make any major moves along the offensive line this offseason or in free agency. So right tackle, center, and left guard are three positions that I think the Niners need to upgrade. They love Colt McKivitz. I don't. They like Jake Brendel. I don't. Aaron Banks left. They're bringing back Ben Barch. I like his upside. It could be Ben Barch, Spencer Burford competing there at left guard, but I just don't think San Francisco is good enough along the offensive line. Along the defensive line, goodbye Malik Collins. Goodbye Leonard Floyd. The Niners have let go of a lot of defensive linemen, and so they don't have a lot of depth there. They need some more talent, too, an influx of talent. So edge and defensive tackle, two massive needs for this football team. And then elsewhere, linebacker, cornerback, running back, wide receiver, and tight end. We flip the page to the Niners' 2025 NFL draft picks. They are loaded with some really good draft capital here, ladies and gentlemen. First on the clock, first round, number 11 overall. They have a premium second-round selection at 43. They have 2 third-round picks, 75 and 100. 2 fourth-rounders, 113 and 138. 2 fifth-rounders, 147 and 160. And then they have 3 seventh-round picks after not taking anybody in the 6th round as of right now at 227, 249, and 252. As for the players who Matt Miller chose, if you were running the front office for the San Francisco 49ers, and we're going to do in-depth scouting profiles on a lot of these players here. First round, 11th overall, cornerback Will Johnson out of Michigan. Second round, defensive tackle Walter Nolen, 43 overall to the Niners out of Ole Miss. In round 3, the Niners go offensive line with Aireontae Ersery out of Minnesota and Cameron Williams out of Texas. In round 4, Sai'vion Jones, the edge rusher out of LSU. Round 4 again, the Niners go running back with RJ Harvey out of UCF. With 2 of the 5th round picks, one, Thomas Fidone, a tight end out of Nebraska, and then linebacker Cody Simon by way of Ohio State, Riley Leonard from Notre Dame in round 7, center Willie Lampkin out of North Carolina, one of the more fascinating players in this draft class, and then safety Hunter Wohler out of Wisconsin. Let's go back to the Niners' first pick here from Matt Miller, and that's Will Johnson out of Michigan. Probably the second best corner in this draft class behind Travis Hunter. Bigger size than Travis Hunter, that is for sure. Here's Miller's reasoning for why he went Johnson to the Niners at 11. What do you get for a team that lost 9 starters this offseason? The best player on the board. Johnson is that player. A seamless replacement for Charvarius Ward, who would be a true homegrown talent at cornerback 1, something the Niners haven't had in ages. I don't know. You could say Deommodore Lenoir might be that guy. Johnson was limited to 6 games in 2024 with a toe injury, but had 2 interceptions, both of which he returned for touchdowns. His playmaking ability and savvy ball skills and zone coverage remind me of Trevon Diggs. When healthy, Johnson is one of the best defenders in the nation. The Niners can bet on a bounce back in health and that Johnson will develop better tackling. What's interesting is that a lot of NFL draft analysts have the Niners going corner at number 11. Not offensive line and not defensive line. Whether that be Jahdae Barron out of Texas, whether that be Will Johnson out of Michigan. And so it's interesting because that is a need too, but it's not as big of a need as the trenches are, in my opinion. Now, those 6 games played for Johnson in 2024, 14 tackles, 1 TFL, 5 pass breakups in those 6 games, 2 picks, and he brought both of them back for touchdowns. His coverage numbers, he was targeted 26 times, gave up 16 catches, 195 yards, no touchdowns given up, and a quarterback rating when targeted of 52.6. When he did play in 2023 on that loaded Michigan defense that won the national championship, the numbers were very good. 8 pass breakups in 12 games, 4 picks, a quarterback rating when targeted of 30.9. He was thrown toward 37 times and only gave up 17 completions, and once again, 0 touchdowns given up in coverage. Give me your thoughts before we continue to push forward on today's show. What position should the Niners target at number 11 overall? Share your opinions with me. To the second round for the Niners, a player who I really like, who I think would be a great scheme fit for San Francisco, and that's Walter Nolen out of Ole Miss. Here's what Miller had to say here. With Javon Hargrave having moved on, the 49ers have a need at both tackle spots in their 4-3 defense. When dialed in, Nolen can be a difference maker at 3 technique with fantastic first step quickness and proven production, 14 TFLs, 6.5 sacks in 2024. If the Niners get Walter Nolen at 43, holy value. I think that he's worthy of being a first-round pick. I love the motor that he plays with, the physicality that he plays with, how violent he is, and how good he is as a pass rusher and as a run stopper. 13 games last year, 48 tackles, 14 TFLs, 6.5 sacks, 35 pressures from the interior with 3 pass breakups. So the instincts there to jump up at the line of scrimmage and bat some balls down, that's impressive to me, and 2 fumble recoveries. And so this is a player who I think can give you snaps right from the go. I would be excited to see how Chris Kocurek and Robert Saleh can develop him. It comes at a massive position of need, and I just think that he can be a really good pro for a very long time. As for Aireontae Ersery, the tackle from Minnesota, the 49ers would choose their eventual Trent Williams replacement in the powerful, crafty Ersery, who has developed upside with 5.01 speed at 331 pounds. And you think about Trent Williams, right? Big body, really athletic, light feet, agile. When he gets out in space, he can really run. This is a player here who can do a lot of the same things, and I would like the value with getting him at this point in the draft, and you can continue to mold him into a really good player. And if you're a young offensive tackle, what better player to learn from than Trent Williams? Very good relative athletic score grade here, 9'3", 6'6", 331 pounds, and to run nearly a sub-5 40-yard dash at that size really is incredible. The Pro Football Focus grades, overall grade of 77.5, pass blocking grade of 77.3, a run blocking grade of 73.6, and then you look at some of the more in-depth numbers here. He only gave up 1 sack in 2024, 1 quarterback hit, 10 hurries, okay number, not awful though, with 3 committed penalties. Building along the trenches. That is what the Niners need to do here in this draft. And I like what Matt Miller did because he goes Ersery with 1 pick here in the 3rd round. And then they go back to offensive tackle with another player who I think can be good over the long haul. And that's Cameron Williams out of Texas, who would be a good scheme fit because Steve Sarkisian runs a lot of the same offensive concepts as Kyle Shanahan. And Matt Miller alluding to that. The offensive line in San Francisco could be a round 1 need given the current roster. Adding Williams at right tackle in round 3 is a value and a scheme fit thanks to his power in the run game. His tape can be a little bit inconsistent from time to time. He's a big dude who sometimes will end up on his butt, and you don't want to see that happen. The penalties are also a concern for me, 16 of them. He did give up 5 sacks of Quinn Ewers and Arch Manning last year, but he graded out pretty well. And it's not like you're taking him in the 1st round, right? You're taking him in the 3rd round. So an overall grade of 67.4, pass blocking grade 72.6, run blocking grade of 70.8, And then furthermore, the 18 hurries, again, I don't know if Cameron Williams is a player who plays right away. I think Ersery potentially could play right away. I more so think Williams is that get him in the third round, good value guy who you could develop into a solid player down the road. I mean, look how quickly it came into gear for a player like Jalen Moore, where it took him a little while, but then in 2024, boom, all of a sudden, he's replacing Trent Williams and performing very well. Sai'vion Jones, edge rusher out of LSU. You look at that body type and you're thinking he should dominate the college football landscape. The production was really just okay from a sack perspective. 4.5 sacks, 2.5 sacks, 4.5 sacks the last 3 years. And so far here, the players who we've talked about, Will Johnson in the first round, Walter Nolen in the second round, Aireontae Ersery in the third round, in addition to Cameron Williams in that third round, and then edge rusher Sai'vion Jones out of LSU in the fourth. And you need a corner, you need defensive linemen, you need offensive tackles, and again, you need another defensive lineman. So best player available, good value, and positions of need. That's why I like what Matt Miller did with this mock. Still more to get to here. Rounds 5 through 7 coming up, but this Niners polo available now. Was $80, but for the faithful on today's show, it is on sale for $43. All you have to do is use that link down below, chatsports.com/49polo. That's chatsports.com/49polo. It'll redirect you to Fanatics. Use that link. You get it. Fanatics knows that Chat Sports, 49ers Report, and Chase Sr. sent you. I think at some point in this draft, the Niners are going to go running back. And Matt Miller has RJ Harvey out of Central Florida, UCF, going to San Francisco here. And you look at the red, not good on the relative athletic score, 5'8", 205, 16 reps on the bench press, not ideal. The overall grade, though, and score is solid, 8.41. That's in the green. The vertical, explosion. Broad, explosion in the green. The speed, outside zone is what Kyle Shanahan is running. You see hole, you hit hole, you take off, and you take it to the cribbo. 4.4 40-yard dash speed for RJ Harvey. That right there is pretty good. And sometimes we overrate the athletic testing, and sometimes you just have to look at the tape. And Harvey was very productive at UCF. Last year in 2024, 232 carries, nearly 1,600 yards, almost 7 yards per carry. He can catch the ball out of the backfield a little bit. 20 catches for 267 yards. And he's also sure-handed. He had 25 total touchdowns a year ago with only 1 fumble. And there's been consistent production here. Red flag with the medicals. He did tear his ACL in 2021. I like how he's bounced back, though. In 2022, almost 7 yards per carry, 796 yards and 5 touchdowns. In 2023, 1,400 yards, once again, over 6 yards per carry and 16 touchdowns. And then in 2024, the numbers that we just broke down. Receiving-wise, there is pretty steady production here, and Kyle Shanahan always likes a back who can catch the ball out of the backfield. That's part of the reason why he never trusted Jordan Mason. 22 catches, 19-20 his last 3 years in college. And I think it's important for San Francisco to draft the running back for the reasons that I've talked about here on the show, but also Christian McCaffrey, older, coming off an injury-plagued season in which he had bilateral Achilles tendonitis and a PCL injury. Isaac Orendo, physical freak, 4'3" guy at well north of 200 pounds, but he too is often injured. I also think at some point the Niners should draft a quarterback, develop a quarterback, see what he can become over time. And I don't love Riley Leonard, honestly. I'd rather go Will Howard or Kyle McCord, but because it's a thin quarterback class, those players might go a little bit earlier. Riley Leonard didn't really throw it that much for Notre Dame last year, but he has good size. When he was at Duke prior to Notre Dame, you saw some ability. He's a really good athlete who can run the football effectively. He completed under 67% of his passes, 2,800 plus yards, but he did add 906 rushing yards to his tally with 38 total touchdowns, 8 picks, 1 fumble. His career passing numbers, you do get concerned here at the lack of times that he was asked to throw the football. In 2022, he threw for almost 3,000 yards, 20 touchdowns, 6 picks. In 2023, he only played 7 games, 3 touchdowns, 3 picks. He transfers to Notre Dame after he played under Mike Elko at Duke. And under Marcus Freeman, he was a winning quarterback, but the passing production wasn't awesome. What does stand out is his running ability. And his last full season at Duke, 124 carries, almost 700 yards, 5.5 yards per carry, 13 touchdowns on the ground. And then in 2024, those impressive numbers with 17 touchdowns on the ground. So a dual threat quarterback who needs a lot of work as a passer. I think he's best suited to be a practice squad guy to start and then eventually turn himself into a backup who Kyle Shanahan can develop into a player who can make the 53. One of the more fascinating players in this draft is Willie Lampkin, the center out of North Carolina. His measurables are fascinating, but the tape, the nastiness, the wrestler's attitude, the physicality, willing to get grimy, grinding in the trenches, those are qualities that I love in an offensive lineman. But how about this? The measurables for Willie Lampkin. His relative athletic score grade on a scale from 0 to 10, a 4.05. A big reason for that, he is under 280 pounds at 279, standing there at 5'10". He did run a 5.2 140-yard dash at that speed. You'd hope that he's a little bit quicker given the weight is under 280 pounds, but he plays with this nasty streak. The vertical leap is not good. This is a classic case of when you watch him on tape, you're like, okay. When you saw him at the Senior Bowl, he was throwing cats down to the ground, and it was impressive how he was going about it. But at 279 pounds, like when Jason Kelce was drafted more than a decade ago, he was looked at as way too small, and he was hovering around 290. All these years later, Willie Lampkin is 279. But at this point in the draft, I'm taking a chance in the 7th round on a player like that because I love the tape. Grade the mock draft, A, B, C, D, or F. Let me know down in the comment section. You always have a voice on this show, and we appreciate all of you.